Are you planning a trip to Istanbul? Then you have come to the right place. We're Jess and Miles, and whether you need help with where to stay, how to get around, what to eat, or what to do while you are here, we have you covered. Our goal is to get you ready for your trip to Istanbul no matter what stage of the process you are in.
And if you're early on in your trip planning and you're overwhelmed with the seemingly endless options of things to see here in Istanbul, then this video is for you. Today we're going to go over some basics. We're going to share with you the top 7 historical sites you shouldn't miss during your trip here to Istanbul, along with the current entry fees and some other helpful logistics. And be sure to stick around until the end because we have a little bonus for you.
Before we jump into the list, we want to show you a map of the city so we're all on the same page. Istanbul is a massive city that actually spans both Europe and Asia. It is divided by the Bosphorus Strait, which flows from the Black Sea up in the north down to the Marmara Sea in the south. Everything west of the Bosphorus is Europe, and everything to the east is Asia. The heart of the old city is here on the southern peninsula, and this is where you will find many of the main historic sites. We have pinned a bunch of the top tourist sites around the city, and as you can see, they are heavily concentrated in the old city. Most of the main sites are relatively easy to access on foot or a short ride on public transit.
Okay, now that we're all on the same page, let's jump right into our list with what probably is the most obvious one, Hagia Sophia. If you are visiting Istanbul, it is nearly a requirement that you at least visit Hagia Sophia. Built over 1,500 years ago, it was the largest building in the world for nearly half of its life. Its architectural and religious significance is honestly hard to overstate. It was first built as a church, then converted into a mosque, then a museum, and now it is an active mosque again.
Hagia Sophia is the most popular site in Istanbul, averaging tens of thousands of visitors per day. When we first came to Istanbul, it was actually free to visit, but now non-Muslim foreigners must purchase tickets, which gets you access to the mezzanine level. From here, you can see some beautiful Byzantine mosaics and look down to the prayer sanctuary below.
The entry fee is 25 euros per person, and the line can get pretty long depending on when you plan to visit. In fact, the area around Hagia Sophia can become unbelievably crowded at certain times. Just taking a quick look back at the map, Hagia Sophia is located in Sultanahmet Square, which is in the heart of the old city. In this area, you also have the Blue Mosque, the Topkapi Palace, and the Basilica Cistern. We'll get to the other 3 shortly, but as I'm sure you can imagine, this area gets incredibly busy. You could spend multiple days just exploring this area, especially if you end up spending a lot of time waiting in lines just to get in.
And that brings us to the sponsor of today's video, GetYourGuide. Now that there is an entry fee to Hagia Sophia, there are so many third-party sites out there selling tickets. Trust us, if you Google Hagia Sophia tickets, it is very overwhelming just how many options there are. We were getting tons of questions about how to buy Hagia Sophia tickets in advance, so last year we found the official seller through GetYourGuide and we tested it out ourselves.
You can buy skip-the-line tickets for just a few dollars more than they charge at the counter, and depending on when you plan to visit, this can save you a lot of time. We tested it out around 10 a.m. back in September, and it easily saved us 30 minutes waiting in line. We actually made a full video on this if you're interested, but the booking process is super straightforward, and you'll get the tickets directly on your phone.
But here's the thing, GetYourGuide isn't just for Hagia Sophia. You can also find skip-the-line tickets for most all of the top sites. Not to mention, they offer over 100,000 different experiences in 150 countries. GetYourGuide makes things super easy. They offer 24/7 support and free cancellation up to 24 hours before your booking. We will include a link in the description below in the pinned comments, or you can scan this QR code to get your tickets to Hagia Sophia and check out their other experiences.
For number 2 on our list, just head right across Sultanahmet Square from Hagia Sophia to the Blue Mosque or Sultanahmet Mosque. The Blue Mosque was built in the early 1600s. It has a beautiful large open courtyard, and it's also very unique because of its 6 minarets.
Once you step inside, you'll easily see why it's called the Blue Mosque. There are thousands of tiles in different shades of blue that fill the interior, and it really is beautiful. It is free to visit, and just like with any active mosque, you will have to dress appropriately to enter. A visit here does not take long, and it is definitely worth it.
Also, fun fact, keep an eye out for the real ostrich eggs hanging from the chandeliers, which were put there to keep spiders away.
Are they really real?
Yeah, they're real. I've never knocked one off to see if they break.
I know, right?
Moving right along to number 3, which is the Basilica Cistern. This is one of our favorite sites in all of Istanbul. Most of our family who've come to visit have also put Basilica Cistern at or near the top of their list as well. Istanbul is surrounded by the sea, but the nearest freshwater source is miles and miles away. The Romans actually built their most advanced aqueduct system here in Istanbul to bring fresh water into the city. And the Basilica Cistern is just one of many cisterns that were built to hold the water, and it's definitely the most impressive, at least in our opinion.
When you drop down below the city and enter Basilica Cistern, you will be blown away by over 300 columns. There is a shallow layer of water in the cistern, and the columns are all lit up, and it really creates an incredible experience. Even visiting at peak times with a crowd, it still feels so different than the busy streets above. In our opinion, this is a must-see site in Istanbul.
It costs 1,300 Turkish lira per person to visit during daytime hours, and they also have a special entry at night that costs 2,000 Turkish lira. We've been to the Basilica Cistern probably a half a dozen times at this point, but we've never been at night. So if you have, we'd love to know your thoughts in the comments.
Number 4 on our list is Topkapi Palace. For centuries, Topkapi Palace was home to the Ottoman sultans and their families. If you are at all interested in Ottoman history, you should definitely visit Topkapi Palace. Not to mention, it is absolutely beautiful. It currently costs 2,000 Turkish lira to enter, and this is for a combined ticket to Topkapi Palace, the Harem, and Hagia Irene. It is a very big site, so you should plan to spend 2 or even 3 hours there to see everything. If you are going to put Topkapi Palace on your itinerary, be sure you give it the time it deserves and also arrive early. It seems like there are a large amount of group tours and even field trips that show up around 10 or 11 a.m., and it can get almost overwhelmingly crowded.
With the current entry fees, visiting Topkapi Palace is not just a big time commitment, but also a pretty big budget commitment as well. There is a free audio guide that can be pretty informative as you make your way around the site, but based on the cost, if this is a priority for your visit, you may want to consider hiring a professional guide just to make sure you get the most out of the experience.
Moving right along to number 5, the Grand Bazaar is one of the oldest and largest covered bazaars in the world. It is over 500 years old, and there are 61 covered streets and somewhere around 4,000 stores. It is free to enter, and you can find almost anything you could think of in the Grand Bazaar. Ceramics, antiques, jewelry, Turkish carpets, leather goods, all kinds of trinkets and souvenirs, and the list goes on.
The Grand Bazaar can be a very memorable place to pick up a souvenir, but just be sure to negotiate. And depending on how much shopping you plan to do, you could spend hours and hours in this place. There is a high probability you will get lost, but don't worry, there are over 20 different entrances, so it shouldn't be too hard to find your way back outside.
And that brings us to the Spice Bazaar. The Spice Bazaar was built in the 17th century, and it is also called the Egyptian Bazaar. So if you happen to see signs that say Egyptian Bazaar, just know that these are the same thing. Like the Grand Bazaar, the Spice Bazaar is free to enter, but it is much smaller than the Grand Bazaar. The Spice Bazaar is just a small L shape, so it really doesn't take long to walk through, but just be ready for some serious sensory overload.
The shops are filled with spices, Turkish delights, dried fruits, and all kinds of different teas. There are so many smells and fun colors, and you'll find very friendly shop owners standing outside offering you all kinds of free samples, trying to entice you to come into their shops. Let's just say these guys have some seriously effective sales tactics. If you're not careful, you might find yourself with a much lighter wallet on your way out.
And that goes for the Grand Bazaar too. So on that note, before we move on to number 7, we have a disclaimer for you on both the Grand Bazaar and the Spice Bazaar. Keep in mind that these are both located in the most touristy part of the city, so as I am sure you can imagine, the prices most definitely reflect that. So be sure to negotiate. Don't accept the first price. Haggling is expected, and it's also a part of the experience, so be sure to compare prices at different shops, and you can always walk away if the pricing is not right.
Also, if you want to try and find some better deals, we have found that the shops outside and around both the Grand Bazaar and the Spice Bazaar offer many of the same things, and oftentimes for much cheaper. But if you happen to find out you paid a little too much for that scarf you bought at the Grand Bazaar, just remind yourself you bought it from the oldest and largest covered bazaar in the world, which might help you with the buyer's remorse. In all seriousness, please be careful not to get too wrapped up in the experience, and make sure you have a good handle on the conversion rates so you don't get taken advantage of. It can happen. We once saw a shop in the Spice Bazaar charging something crazy like $100 a kilo for one of their special teas. But all the prices are in Turkish lira, which is why you need to know the conversion rate.
Now it is finally time to move across the Golden Horn to the Northern Peninsula for number 7 on our list, which is Galata Tower. Galata Tower is over 65 meters tall, so you can see it from all around the city. It was built in the 1300s, and historically it was used as a watchtower. Now it is a museum, and you can go all the way to the top for a 360-degree view of Istanbul. This really is one of our favorite views in the entire city.
It costs 30 euros to enter, and as a forewarning, it gets very busy around sunset. This is for very good reason though. The view of the sunset from up here is absolutely beautiful. I will say there are several rooftop bars in the Galata area as well, so you also have the option of catching the sunset from one of these with the added bonus of a glass of wine or a cold beer. Even if you choose not to go up in Galata Tower, the Galata neighborhood is definitely worth a visit. There are some other great things to see in the area, not to mention some amazing restaurants as well.
Since we have not covered anything on the Asian side, we are going to throw in one more site before we close things out. After all, you can't come to the only city in the world that straddles 2 continents and not put your feet on both. A ferry across the Bosphorus might just be the cheapest intercontinental travel there is, and this is our absolute favorite way to get around the city. So number 8 on our list is Maiden's Tower. Maiden's Tower is located on a small island in the Bosphorus, just off the coast of Üsküdar.
The history of Maiden's Tower is a little hazy, but it's estimated to have been built around 410 BC. It has served many different purposes throughout the centuries, and today it is a museum, so you can actually take a boat to the tiny island and explore Maiden's Tower. It costs 27 euros plus the transportation fee, which I think is 5 euros round trip. Even if you don't want to visit Maiden's Tower, one of our favorite places in the whole city to watch sunset is along the waterfront in Üsküdar, with Maiden's Tower in the foreground and views of the old city in the background.
Alright, well we have only just scratched the surface of all the things to see here, but these 8, in our opinion, are the most popular and some of the best historic sites to see during your trip to Istanbul. We will be sure to link the official websites for each of these places in the description below, and if you're looking for more information on things to see and do while you're here, be sure to check out our other videos on Istanbul and Turkey.
And since you've been kind enough to stick around until the end, we would like to offer you a completely free planning and packing checklist that we built to help you stay on track during your planning process. We'll include a link to that in the description as well.
Well, that's going to do it for us today. We hope you found this video helpful. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and as always, thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.